Yep, uh-huh. This is the hill to die on right here. Some people will stand to defend those in need, some will fight for the marginalized, and I'm right there with them because I like Fire Emblem the Binding Blade, so you can just give me my medal now. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why? Why make a video on an old GBA game that didn't even come to the West and has no historical value? Well, you see, this channel has actually gotten way more attention than I ever could have imagined. I never thought it would hit even 50 subscribers, but now I'm at over 300, nearing 400, and I'm incredibly thankful to everyone who's even watched or clicked a single one of my videos. Which is why I need a video like this that nobody's gonna watch so that YouTube knows exactly where I stand on this matter. Now before I begin, you may be wondering why exactly this game of all games needs defending. Well, that's because Fire Emblem fans have very much decided this game is one of the bad ones. Now normally, this wouldn't be a big deal because according to Fire Emblem fans, there's only around 2 good Fire Emblem games and the rest are bad. But what's interesting about this game is that it's one of the only ones that's unanimously agreed on to be bad. You'll always see people defending just about every game in this series, but with this one, they just awkwardly rub their necks and go, yeah, that one's not great. Don't believe me? Well, I brought on a prolific Fire Emblem fan just to prove my point. Enter Joey Pals. Yo, Joey.
Hey, man, what's up? What happened? Everything okay?
Duh. Why would I not be?
You texted me saying you were in a car accident and that it was an emergency.
Oh, no. I said a car crash emergency, as in a car crash level emergency, because I want to know what you think of the video game Fire Emblem The Binding Blade.
Are you fucking kidding me, Cole?
No, I'm always dead serious. You know this.
Are you kidding me right now? I literally ran through a couple red lights, sped 10 miles down the highway. I'm literally on my way to the hospital for you because I thought there was something wrong. Are you fucking kidding me right now?
Okay, well, if you saw me in the hospital and I asked you what you thought of The Binding Blade...
And you want my opinion on the most mid of Fire Emblem games. Seriously.
So you do hate it. See? I told you they hate the game. Now, if you don't like this game, that's fine. Nobody's opinion is invalid, and obviously opinions aren't fact. I mean, except mine, because... look at that. I mean, it's right there. But let's really dig into this. Binding Blade was the first Fire Emblem not made by Shozo Kaga, the man who started the Fire Emblem series, and who made 1.5 good Fire Emblem games in my opinion. But in the fanbase's opinion, he made 1. But also 5. But also none. So he leaves to make better games, and then the team at Intelligent Systems makes up for his absence by making what is honestly just a pretty safe Fire Emblem game on the surface. It's basically Fire Emblem 1, down to pretty much the same characters, but in a more interesting world in my opinion, at least in hindsight. I say hindsight because the main punch this game's story has is mostly if you played the prequel, which came out later, which gave more meat to a few of the characters. Unfortunately, I did look it up, and according to the fans, that game sucks, so it's probably not even worth exploring. But at least Hector dies in this one, which is very deserved because in my last playthrough of Blazing Sword, he wasn't very good, like, his level up sucked. No wonder he died. If I'm being 100% honest, I don't think Fire Emblem needs a crazy good story. I think if it has an intimidating villain and good characters, I'll be satisfied. I think some games in the series do better and some do worse, but I don't think there's a single one without a few characters I really connect with. I mean, hey, I think most of the fandom agrees on this one. There's so few actual stories in Fire Emblem that really stick out for storytelling. I mean, besides Path of Radiance, which the fanbase does... Oh, never mind. But this game does have some winners. The characters who are just FE1 characters are still decent because they're based off of already great characters, like Milady, Rutger, Percival, Lance, and Sword. Then there's characters like Zephiel, who fills that intimidating villain quota super well. I think if Ashnard didn't exist, he would be the best big armor man in the series, at least in terms of main villains. Also, there's newer archetypes like Cecilia, who's a general who lost her position when Zephiel shot her with a gun, but then she comes back to life. Sophia is very underrated.
Oh my goodness!
As a character, I know we've had the Listful Lost character before, but with Sophia, I really wanted more of her. I think she's one of the most interesting characters here. If the game ever gets remade, I hope she gets some more attention. This guy's name is Dick. So many of these characters have a lot of unexpected depth, so it really sucks that you're never going to see it unless you waste turns on this support system. It is the first game to use what would soon become the modern support system of conversations and character development, but it sucks. Honestly, I only usually bother to get Roy and Lilina, and then maybe 3 or 4 others that I know I already like. It's just never worth those stats, and considering you can read all of the supports online, finding the character work in this game is just unfun, because you sit there for turn after turn after turn hoping that a character will say hi to another. But I mean, this is literally every game until Fire Emblem 9, so it's not even really a Binding Blade only problem. It just sucks that a lot of this game's good character writing is locked behind skipping bundles of turns. But enough about how good this game's characters are. Let's talk about how bad this game's characters are. This game showers you in units. Similar to the game it takes from, there is just so many. Mainly because they were scared of the consequences of permadeath on the player. With most Fire Emblems, large roster or not, it's best to have a more balanced cast where everyone can be of use in one way or another. Binding Blade looks those games in the eyes and calls them coward, because this game's unit balancing is hilarious. See, before around Sacred Stones, growth rates tended to be wildly inconsistent, while base stats kind of ruled all. Binding Blade is a prime example. So many of these units are awful right out the gate, while a select few dunk on everyone around them, both allies and enemies. Normally, a casual player will make up for this by feeding kills to weak units in order to get some good levels. But what's genius about Binding Blade is the growths are really low even if the character starts bad. Now, I'm only semi-sarcastic when I say genius, because I actually do kind of like it. You see, I'm a huge idiot with gambling problems, so my favorite thing to do is to take an awful unit and then power level them until they're a juggernaut of murder. The thing about it is, low growth rates or not, you're going to be proccing some of this stuff, and you're going to be proccing it pretty frequently. I think the limited EXP, money, and weapons in Fire Emblem makes it prime to make you want to challenge yourself to raise up a garbage tier character like Arden and bring them to endgame. What I love about Binding Blade is that a good chunk of my units kind of have to be that. Binding Blade is a game that starts hard and gets a little easier as you get more broken units like Milady or Percival. However, having characters like any single knight class in this game match up to them in terms of power is both hilarious and fun, and I can't get enough of it. Not to say I don't get it, as hard mode in this game can be absolutely brutal, and even normal mode doesn't completely let up on you, and it stays decently difficult. However, grow up. You can't beat this kid's game? Seriously? This is probably my third most played Fire Emblem game because of that, and it should be my first because I'm pretty sure the two I've played more are bad games. And if you don't think that I grinded for over an hour in the arena more than once to get all of my units to a way higher level than I should have been and have so much money it looks like I was using cheat codes, then you clearly don't understand optimal play, baby. I will say the thing that brings that imbalance most is something that stats can't fix though, and that is movement. This game has an FE4 issue of huge maps that make lower movement units take a huge dive in usability. Luckily, a selection of the great units are footlocked, so you're not totally screwed, but this is why the armor units suck so much dick. I love armor units. They tank well, they hit hard, and their animations are sick, but they get screwed over by the fact that they can only move 2 inches at a time, while Milady crosses the entire map. A lot of these maps benefit from that size with multiple paths, but a lot of them also just kind of suck to go through. By that I mean Gaiden chapters. They all have really unfun gimmicks that make it so I'll accidentally get a few, then burn through the shorter ending with the overpowered weapons you get and call it a day. I do think that if you don't go Gaiden, these maps are all very fun and very fulfilling. They're stuffed full of chests, stores, towns, and items to find. And most enemy formations are decently interesting and create a decent challenge. And what's great is that you'll be fine because you're the type of coward who definitely turtles, unlike me. Because I not only spent all my money on boots, but I also use dancers, which means I'm a better player than you. And this game loves me for it. But it'll love you turtling idiots most of the time too. Except for sometime the game will do this stupid thing where you have to push hard in order to get rewards while units with less movement take care of enemies directly in their way. Some stupid bad design like that. The map size is probably not great for a handheld game, but let's be real. You're not playing this on real hardware. You're just not. So use speed up and maps are gonna fly by. Also, with an emulator you can save scum level ups. Yeah. I'd never do that. I'd never cheat. Now, obviously, from the description, this is pretty much a player phase focus game, which I personally love. Player phase focus basically means exactly what it sounds like, where most of your time needs to be spent taking out as many enemies as possible in order to not get destroyed during enemy phase. Understandably, all player phase focused Fire Emblem games are indeed bad, except this one. Right, guys? Oh, never mind. But if you understand your strategy, I think they can still be pretty engaging. But I hear you cry like the confused, lonely creature you are. But they're all seas maps.
Fuck it!
Seas map.
Fair assessment. However, most Fire Emblem games before this one were also seas focused outside of Gaiden and Thracia. And considering that it's clear they mostly wanted to stick to what was safe, it makes sense that seas is what they chose. It makes the end goal the same and also makes it so multiple pathways are easier to design. Now, does every massive map need to have a seas throne with a painfully annoying boss at the end? No, and that's the one convention I'm glad these games eventually ditched. The bosses in this game tend to suck, and I can't defend that. Except I can! Look at how good I am at this game. These bosses are easy, and you should feel bad for being bad at video games. Plus, I personally don't get sick of any of the enemy fights because this game introduced the gorgeous GBA sprite animations. See, in a game like Genealogy of the Holy War, the animations are decent, but then you jump to these, and it's insane. Other games in the series also have these, but this game was without a doubt the best at the time. And basically any non-lord, non-new class in the future GBA games will reuse them. I really miss these sprites. It looks way better than Shadow Dragon, which was bad. But also better than New Mystery, which despite being hideous, I actually thought was pretty good. Oh. And what you need to understand is that this game is unironically a better gateway into classic Fire Emblem than people would believe. These games are weird, experimental, and don't have a true formula pinned down yet, but Binding Blade fuses the more archaic unit and map design with the more modern, easy to pick up games we're more used to now. This game was like the second or third Fire Emblem game I ever played, and because I played it and understood how it played and engaged with its trappings, I was able to pick up any other game in the series and click with it a lot faster. But here's where I get totally actually serious. A lot of what I've had to say here has been backhanded compliments or just complaints. So let me say why I actually really like this game. It has a really great flow for me. As I said, the game starts very difficult. You mainly have piss babies with bad bases and bad growths, and Roy, who's just the worst. So you have to rely on Marcus and the other horse boys to lead you through. But then you get Deke and Rutger and Lou and Clarine, and you start to see your advantage. Then as you go on, you get even more. Sin, Gonzalez, Milady, and some pre-promotes who all have decent to great stats and even better weapon ranks. And you realize you have an actual solid army. The low hit rates stop affecting you as much and mainly affect enemies. Your confidence will grow and eventually you're able to make the most out of player phase. There's something really intoxicating for me about the way this game teaches you and how it's balanced. It gives you plenty of money, especially if you're good like me, but also so much to spend it on that you'll always be well stocked, but never necessarily rolling in cash. Even Chapter 14, which sucks, is made way more bearable when you know that after that mountain, you're gonna get a fun decline back down. It never gets easy, but once your main group is built and ready, it's a lot more comfortable, which would be boring if the game didn't expect you to play better as you go. It makes those superficial memories that I really love, which makes different characters impact me way harder, even if some are just copy and paste jobs. I remember Rutger way more than I remember Navarre, because yeah, Navarre was decent, but he wasn't critting every 5 seconds with a steel sword. I think there are plenty of Fire Emblem games that do it better. Yeah, the title is a lie. This game for me is more of a strong A tier, maybe high B tier, and I think games like Conquest are more strategic and Engage has a much better balance and much better maps. But in terms of the older games with less balance and more bullshit, I think this one is my favorite. It went from a guilty pleasure to just pleasure. And I think we all know in the Fire Emblem community, nothing matters more to us than personal experiences and feelings, which is why Sophia is such a great unit.
Oh my goodness! Yes.
Now, before we close out, I do want to mention Project Ember. I've played it. I love it a lot, but it's really a different game. The unit balancing is much better. There's a lot more promotion items to go around. The maps have been tinkered to streamline them, and the hit rates are much better. It is even more player face focused and is even more difficult, but I heavily recommend trying it once you've got a few Fire Emblems under your belt. Now, I'm of course never coming back, but before I don't, let's see just how much I've changed the Fire Emblem fanbase's opinion on this game. Hey, Gilgo.
Oh,
It is 3 a.m. What do you want?
Well, after my historic opinion piece, what do you now think of Fire Emblem The Binding Blade?
I have never played Fire Emblem.
Yeah, well, how did my video change your outlook on it?